It's a late afternoon when the news of Débora Estrella's tragic death begins to spread. Yet for a few hours, the world has yet to realize what it's truly lost. In the midst of the chaos, an accident, one that feels like a cruel coincidence, changes everything. I was on air when the news broke. I did not know that the woman I loved, the woman who once walked beside me through a decade of memories, was gone. It was a brutal moment, reading the news, unaware that the person I once shared so much with would be named among the dead. I remember that day vividly, how I read out the details of an aviation accident in Nuevo Leon, as if I were detached from the very lives behind the headlines. 2 people died, I reported, unknowingly including Débora in the casualty count. Only hours later did I find out, and in that instant, I couldn't speak. The silence swallowed me whole, and I erased everything. There are no scripts or manuals that can prepare someone to inform the world of the death of someone they loved. Débora Estrella wasn't just a news anchor. She was an embodiment of life. For years, she stood before the cameras with a certain grace, her voice commanding attention, her demeanor calm under pressure. But I knew her differently. She wasn't just the woman who woke up at 4:30 every morning to prepare for the news. She was the one who had an unyielding love for horses, the one who would dance barefoot at weddings, the one who collected blank notebooks, believing that one day she would write a book. The person the world saw on television was just one side of Débora. Behind the makeup and the polished exterior, she was a dreamer, always looking for more, always seeking something just beyond her reach. That thirst for something greater, that desire for freedom, led her to the sky. She didn't just want to inform. She wanted to break free, to explore, to fly. It's ironic, really. The sky, something she'd always yearned to touch, ended up taking her away, leaving only the echoes of what might have been. In the weeks leading up to her death, I watched her grow more and more passionate about aviation, though I never fully understood why. She'd mentioned it to me once, that she wanted to take flying lessons. At first, I thought it was just a passing dream, a fleeting fantasy. But it was real. She was serious, building her own path toward the sky, away from the bright lights of the newsroom. Her final days, filled with excitement for her new adventure, were the most alive I'd seen her in years. There was a light in her eyes that hadn't been there for a long time. That's the Débora I will always remember, the one who wasn't afraid to pursue her dreams, even when they led her into unknown, dangerous territory. Today, the world speaks of her death, of the crash, of the possible mechanical failure or human error. But I choose to speak of her differently. I choose to remember the woman she was, the woman who taught me, and everyone around her, what it meant to truly live, to chase after a dream, even when the cost was unknown. I've seen many tragedies in my time, many accidents, many lives lost. But Débora's was different. It wasn't just about the crash. It was about the woman behind the headline. The woman who lived, loved, and dreamed without ever slowing down. And in the end, that's what I'll carry with me. The memory of her unstoppable spirit, her relentless drive to break free from the ordinary. That's the Débora I'll never forget. Débora Estrella's life was not merely about the fame and recognition she garnered in her career. Beneath the surface of the journalist who captivated millions every morning on television, there was a woman who had lived a life of both quiet struggles and triumphs, each moment shaping her into the person she became. Born and raised in the vibrant city of Monterey, Débora's early life was anything but easy. She grew up in a modest household, where dreams were often constrained by the harsh realities of life. Yet, even in those formative years, Débora displayed a tenacity and a desire to achieve something more. Her family, although loving and supportive, could not shield her from the pressures of society that often weigh heavily on the shoulders of the young. Her mother, a woman who had sacrificed much to support her children, instilled in Débora a sense of discipline and determination that would carry her through the many trials that lay ahead. As a child, Débora found solace in books and the world of academia, escaping into the realms of stories and knowledge. But it was not just her thirst for knowledge that set her apart. it was her drive to transcend her circumstances. She excelled in school, always eager to prove herself, even when faced with obstacles that many of her peers would have found insurmountable. Her love for learning eventually led her to pursue a degree in communication, a decision that would shape the trajectory of her life in ways she never could have imagined. At university, Débora discovered her passion for journalism. It was there, among the bustling campus of Universidad Autónoma de Nuevo León, that she first dipped her toes into the world of media. She worked tirelessly, often staying up late into the night to perfect her skills, writing articles, producing content, and gaining experience that would eventually land her a spot at Frecuencia Tech, a local radio station. Her ambition was clear, and she quickly became known as the hardworking, talented student with a future full of promise. But even as Débora's star began to rise, she was not immune to the loneliness that often accompanies those who push themselves to the limit. The long hours, the sacrifices, and the pressure to succeed took their toll on her personal life. There were many moments when Débora felt torn between her career and her relationships. Her dedication to her work often left little time for friends or family, and she struggled to find a balance between her professional aspirations and her need for connection. The years spent building her career in Monterrey were both rewarding and challenging. Débora quickly became a recognizable figure in the city's media scene, known for her intelligence, her sharp instincts, and her unwavering commitment to the truth. Yet, despite her growing success, she often felt an emptiness that she could not fill. She began to question whether the fame and the recognition she had worked so hard for were truly what she wanted. There's always a part of her that longed for something more, a sense of freedom that could not be found in front of the camera. In her early 20s, Débora made a bold decision. She moved to Mexico City, hoping that the move would bring her closer to her ultimate goal, to become a journalist who not only reported the news, but made a real impact. But the city was as unforgiving as it was full of opportunity. In a sea of experienced journalists, Débora had to fight for her place. She was often seen as the new girl in the industry, looked down upon by those who had been there longer and were more established. Despite the challenges, Débora's tenacity and determination began to pay off. She worked tirelessly, proving herself day in and day out. Slowly but surely, she earned the respect of her colleagues and the trust of her audience. Her unique style of delivering the news, a blend of empathy, precision, and intelligence, set her apart from others in the field. It wasn't long before she became a household name, known for her unwavering professionalism and her ability to make complex stories accessible to her viewers. But even as she climbed the ranks in her career, Débora's personal life remained complicated. Her relationship with her ex-husband was a testament to her determination and her devotion. Although they had separated, they remained close, a rare bond forged by years of mutual respect, love, and shared experiences. The years they spent together were marked by moments of both joy and hardship. They had seen each other at their best and their worst. And through it all, Débora remained steadfast in her commitment to her career and to her personal growth. Despite her professional success, Débora's personal ambitions continued to evolve. She had always been a woman of passion, and as her career progressed, she found herself increasingly drawn to new pursuits that had nothing to do with her work on television. One of her most cherished dreams was to fly, not just metaphorically, but literally. She had long been fascinated by aviation, captivated by the idea of controlling an aircraft, of soaring through the skies. It was a dream that she kept mostly to herself, a silent aspiration that she knew would be difficult to pursue alongside her demanding career. But, as with everything in Débora's life, she didn't simply wait for opportunities to come to her. Instead, she set out to make that dream a reality. Behind the scenes, she began taking flying lessons, learning to navigate the complex world of aviation. It was a pursuit that gave her a sense of freedom she had never experienced before. It was also a reminder that no matter how much success she achieved in her professional life, there were still parts of her life that she had yet to explore, parts that she was determined to discover on her own terms. This longing for freedom and self-discovery became a defining theme in Debora's life. She had already achieved so much, yet she was never content to rest on her laurels. She was always looking ahead, always seeking something more, always striving to break free from the confines of the life others expected her to lead. This desire for more, for something deeper, was what truly made her unique, what made her both relatable and extraordinary. The tragedy of Débora Estrella's final moments is one that will remain forever etched in the hearts of those who knew her. Her story, which was once filled with hope, ambition, and endless possibilities, took a dark turn when the accident occurred. It wasn't just a loss of life. It was the abrupt end of a journey, the closing of a chapter in a book that had only just begun to be written. In the weeks leading up to her death, Débora seemed more alive than ever. There was a fire in her eyes, a renewed sense of purpose that radiated from her every action. She was living her dream, not just professionally, but personally as well. After years of being confined to the constraints of television and the demands of her career, Débora had finally found something that allowed her to breathe freely. Aviation was her escape, her passion, and it had come at a time when she was ready to embrace it fully. The day she died, Débora was supposed to be training in the skies above Nuevo Leon. She had always dreamed of flying, and she was determined to make it a reality. Her ambition was not just about mastering the controls of an airplane. It was about conquering something deeper within herself. She longed for freedom, the kind of freedom that couldn't be found in a studio or behind a camera. It was the freedom to be herself, to do something just for her. She had been taking flying lessons in secret, pushing herself beyond her comfort zone. And in doing so, she had discovered a part of herself that had long been dormant. Her love for aviation wasn't just about escaping the pressures of her career. It was about finding a new way to experience the world. Flying gave her a sense of control, a sense of agency that she had never felt before. But it also represented something far deeper, the courage to pursue a passion, no matter how unconventional it might seem to others. To Débora, flying wasn't just a hobby, it was a statement. It was an assertion of her independence, her ability to take risks and live boldly, even when others might question her choices. The fateful day began like any other. Débora had been up early, as usual, preparing for her flying lesson. She had been looking forward to it for days, eager to perfect her skills and perhaps even take the next step toward obtaining her license. But that day, something went wrong. The plane, an instructor-led training aircraft, encountered difficulties. The maneuver that Débora and her instructor had been practicing, the takeoff and return to the airport, ended in disaster. In a split second, the plane lost control and plummeted to the ground, crashing in the industrial park near the Pesqueria River. When the news broke, no one could have predicted the personal toll it would take on the people who loved her. As the details of the accident emerged, it became clear that Débora had been on that plane, and the weight of that realization hit like a ton of bricks. Her colleagues, her friends, her family, none of them had prepared for the possibility of losing her so suddenly, so violently. The news was swift and brutal, and it left everyone who had known her in a state of shock. No one was ready to say goodbye, least of all those who had been closest to her. For her ex-husband, Jose Luis Garcia, the news was particularly devastating. He had known Débora better than anyone. They had shared not only a professional journey, but a deeply personal one as well. Their relationship had been filled with both love and struggle, as most long-term relationships are. But even after their divorce, they had remained in contact, supporting each other in their respective lives. They had promised each other that no matter what happened, they would always be there for one another. And in the days following her death, Jose Luis kept his word, helping to organize her funeral and support her family. But even with that support, there were still so many unanswered questions. What had gone wrong on that flight? Was it mechanical failure, human error, or simply bad luck? For those who were close to her, the answers didn't matter as much as the fact that she was gone. The pain of losing Débora wasn't just about the accident. It was about the crushing reality that someone who had been so full of life, so vibrant and full of promise, was taken too soon. The loss was incomprehensible, and the grief was overwhelming. In the days following her death, the media focused on the technical details of the crash, the possible causes, the investigation, the reports. But for those who had known Débora, there was a much deeper loss at play. She was more than just a name in a headline. She was more than just a news anchor. She was a woman who had touched the lives of so many people, who had inspired others to follow their dreams, no matter how impossible they might seem. She had always been the person to push boundaries, to go after what she wanted with relentless determination. And in the end, that's what made her death feel so unjust. She had so much more to give. As the investigation into the crash unfolded, there were moments when the details felt almost unbearable. The fact that Débora had been on that plane, pursuing a dream that had brought her so much joy, only added to the tragedy. The crash was a cruel reminder of how fragile life truly is, how quickly things can change. But for those who loved her, the grief was not just about the accident. It was about the loss of a person who had lived with purpose, who had strived to make the most of every moment, and who had left behind a legacy that would never be forgotten. Her colleagues at Milenio, where she had worked for years, were devastated by the loss. Many of them had worked closely with her, sharing stories and memories of her work ethic, her passion for journalism, and her unwavering commitment to her craft. They remembered her as someone who never stopped learning, never stopped growing, and who always pushed herself to be the best she could be. She had earned the respect of her peers and the admiration of her audience, and her loss left a void in the newsroom that could never be filled. As the days passed, the tributes poured in from all over the country. Friends, family, colleagues, and even strangers who had been touched by her work shared their memories of Débora and expressed their sorrow at her passing. The outpouring of love was a testament to the impact she had on so many lives. But even in the face of such overwhelming grief, there was a sense of peace that came from knowing that Débora had lived her life fully on her own terms. She had chased her dreams with courage, and in the end, she had found something that truly made her happy. The death of Débora Estrella sent ripples through her community, through the world of journalism, and through the hearts of those who had followed her journey over the years. But as the details of the tragedy slowly unfolded, it became clear that her death was not just a sudden accident. It was the culmination of a life lived with intensity, passion, and a relentless pursuit of something greater. The impact of her loss was felt deeply by everyone who had known her, and even by those who had only seen her on television. In the aftermath of Débora's death, the focus shifted from the technical details of the crash to the emotional toll it took on those closest to her. For her family, her friends, and her colleagues, the sense of loss was profound. In many ways, Débora had been more than just a public figure. She had been a sister, a daughter, a friend, and a partner, roles that had defined her long before she became a household name. Her absence left a void that no amount of words or tributes could fill. Her family, especially her parents and siblings, were devastated by the loss. They had watched Débora grow from a bright young woman with big dreams to a successful journalist who had touched the lives of so many. But beyond her professional success, she had been a deeply caring person, always making time for her loved ones, despite her demanding schedule. Her mother, in particular, struggled to come to terms with the loss of a daughter who had been not just a source of pride, but a constant source of support and love. In the days following the tragedy, she clung to the memories of Débora's childhood, of the times when she was just a little girl with hopes and dreams of her own. For Jose Luis Garcia, Débora's ex-husband, the loss was especially painful. They had spent over a decade together, sharing not only a marriage but a deep and profound bond. Although their romantic relationship had ended years before, their connection remained strong, rooted in mutual respect and shared experiences. He had been there when Débora took her first steps into journalism, when she climbed the ranks of the industry, and when she finally reached the heights of success that so many dream of. He had seen the determination in her eyes, the hunger to achieve, and the sacrifices she made along the way. Yet, even with all the achievements and recognition, there was a deep sense of sorrow that accompanied her death. For Jose Luis, it wasn't just the loss of someone he had loved, but the loss of someone who had never stopped striving, who had never settled for anything less than what she believed was her true calling. Their shared history made it difficult for him to come to terms with the fact that Deborah's journey had been cut short so suddenly. The impact of her death was also felt by her colleagues in the world of journalism. Débora had been a role model for so many people in the industry, both young and old. Her work ethic, her professionalism, and her dedication to her craft were qualities that everyone admired. She had a way of making complex stories feel accessible, of delivering the news with compassion and clarity. Her colleagues spoke of her not just as a talented journalist, but as a person who had always been willing to lend a helping hand, offer guidance, and share her knowledge with others. In the newsroom, there was an overwhelming sense of loss that could not be expressed in words. For many of Debora's co-workers, the absence of her voice, her presence, and her leadership left a void that was impossible to fill. The morning news program, which had once been a familiar routine, now felt empty without her there to anchor it. Her absence was a constant reminder of how fleeting life could be and how quickly everything could change. But as her colleagues mourned, they also celebrated the incredible impact she had made on their lives and on the world of journalism. And then there was the public, the millions of viewers who had tuned in every day to hear Débora deliver the news. For them, her death felt like the loss of a trusted friend, a constant presence in their lives that they had come to rely on. They had seen her grow from a young reporter into one of the most respected journalists in the country. They had watched her face personal struggles with grace, never allowing her emotions to show on air. To the public, Débora was more than just a news anchor. She was a symbol of perseverance, professionalism, and dedication. In the days following her death, tributes poured in from every corner of the country. Fellow journalists, politicians, celebrities, and even ordinary citizens shared their stories of how Débora had touched their lives. Some spoke of the professional admiration they had for her, while others recalled personal moments that revealed a more intimate side of the woman they had known. Each tribute served as a testament to the kind of person Débora had been, someone who had left a lasting impression on everyone she met. But even as the tributes continued to flow, there was a deeper sadness that lingered. It wasn't just the public loss of a famous journalist. It was the loss of a person who had been so full of life, who had so much more to give. Débora had not just been a part of the media landscape. She had been an integral part of the fabric of her community. Her absence left a hole that could never be filled. And for those who had loved her, it was a reminder of how quickly life could change. As the days passed, the mourning gradually gave way to reflection. People began to focus not just on the circumstances of her death, but on the life Débora had led. She had lived with passion and purpose, always striving to be the best version of herself. Her journey had been one of continuous growth, of never settling for less, of always reaching for something higher. And while her life may have been cut short, the legacy she left behind would continue to inspire generations to come. In the aftermath of Débora Estrella's tragic death, as the world continued to grapple with the loss, what remained was a profound sense of emptiness that permeated the lives of those who had been closest to her. Yet, as time passed, a different side of Débora began to emerge, one that had remained hidden from the public eye, a side that was intimate, vulnerable, and deeply human. It was in the quiet moments, the ones that were shared only with those who knew her best, that the true depth of her spirit could be seen. These moments, often unnoticed by the cameras and the public, spoke volumes about the woman. She was beyond the headlines. One of the most poignant aspects of Debora's life was the quiet struggles she faced in her personal journey. While the world saw her as a confident, composed news anchor, those closest to her understood the internal battles she fought every day. Her ambition, her drive to be the best, came at a price. The long hours, the constant pressure to perform, and the relentless demands of the media world took a toll on her mental and emotional well-being. Yet, despite the toll, Débora never stopped. She kept pushing forward, determined to succeed, to prove that she could handle everything that came her way. In private, Débora was far from the image of perfection that she projected to the world. She struggled with the isolation that often accompanied her career. Despite her professional success, there were nights when she found herself alone, reflecting on the sacrifices she had made to get where she was. The friendships she had with colleagues were meaningful, but the emotional toll of living in the public often left her feeling disconnected, as if there were parts of her that no one could truly understand. Yet, even in these moments of solitude, Débora was never without hope. Her dreams of flying, of escaping the confines of her professional life and exploring the world from a new perspective, were a testament to her desire to break free. She wasn't just looking for success. She was searching for something deeper, something that would fulfill her on a level that television and journalism could not. Flying was her escape, her sanctuary. It allowed her to experience the world from a different angle, to see life from a height that gave her a sense of freedom she could never find in front of camera. Those who knew her well spoke of her deep desire to be more than just a journalist. She was a woman of many facets, a person who didn't want to be defined by her job or by the public's perception of her. She wanted to experience life fully, to explore new passions, and to grow beyond the boundaries of what was expected of her. Her flying lessons, a secret she kept from many, were a reflection of this. They represented a part of her that had been hidden away for years, a dream that she kept close to her heart, away from the scrutinizing eyes of the media. There were moments when Débora opened up about her aspirations, particularly to those who were closest to her. She would speak of her love for aviation with a spark in her eyes, a passion that had been with her for years, but had only recently found a way to take flight. Her excitement was palpable, and those around her couldn't help but be caught up in her enthusiasm. For Débora, flying wasn't just a hobby. It was a symbol of her desire for autonomy, for self-determination, for a life where she could be in control of her own destiny. Even as she achieved more success in her career, there was a sense that Débora was constantly searching for something. She had reached the pinnacle of her profession, but she was never content to simply rest on her laurels. Her relentless drive, her constant need to improve, to be better, often left her feeling empty. It was in these moments, when she was alone with her thoughts, that she would reflect on the deeper meaning of her life. She would question whether all the success, all the recognition, was truly worth the sacrifices she had made. Despite these moments of self-doubt, Débora never gave up. She didn't allow herself to be defeated by the weight of her inner struggles. Instead, she channeled that energy into her work, into her flying lessons, into everything that gave her a sense of purpose. She refused to let the pressures of her career or the isolation of fame define her. She was determined to create her own path, to find fulfillment in the things that truly mattered to her. Her death, while tragic, served as a reminder of the complexity of her life. She was more than just a journalist, more than just a public figure. She was a woman who lived with passion, with intensity, and with a deep desire to find meaning in everything she did. The secret parts of her life, the ones that were hidden from the public, were what made her who she truly was. They were the moments of vulnerability, the struggles, the dreams, and the aspirations that defined her in ways that the world could never fully understand. In the months following her death, those closest to her began to share these personal stories, these hidden parts of her life. They spoke of her kindness, her generosity, and her unwavering support for those she loved. They spoke of the moments when she was not in front of the camera, not the public figure, but just Débora, the woman who loved horses, who danced barefoot at weddings, who spent quiet evenings at home reading books or writing in her journals. These were the moments that truly defined her, and they were the moments that those who knew her best cherished the most. Her legacy, in many ways, was not just about her career or her achievements. It was about the way she lived her life, the way she loved, the way she dreamed, the way she fought for what she wanted. Débora Estrella may no longer be with us, but the impact she left on those who knew her, The lessons she taught us about pursuing our dreams and the example she set in living authentically will continue to resonate for years to come. In the wake of Débora Estrella's passing, her legacy has become more than just a series of professional accomplishments. It has transformed into a symbol of perseverance, resilience, and an unwavering pursuit of personal fulfillment. Her life, though tragically short, offers profound lessons about ambition, passion, and the search for meaning, reminding us that success is not just about what we achieve in the eyes of the world, but about how we live authentically in pursuit of what truly matters to us. Throughout her career, Débora had been the embodiment of discipline and hard work. She started as a young, aspiring journalist with dreams far beyond her humble beginnings. Her journey was not one of immediate success, but rather a gradual ascent that required immense determination and sacrifice. Every milestone she achieved, from her first position at Frequentia Tech to her later work at Millennium, was the result of years of dedication. Her reputation was built on her ability to tell stories with empathy, to connect with her audience, and to tackle even the most difficult topics with professionalism and grace. Yet, despite her immense professional success, Débora never lost sight of her inner struggles. She was, after all, more than just the image the public saw. Behind the polished exterior of the confident news anchor was a woman who grappled with the demands of her career, the pressure to constantly excel, and the longing to find deeper meaning in her life. She often spoke of the exhaustion she felt from the relentless pace of her work, and while she never let it show on air, those who knew her best understood the toll it took on her. This internal conflict between the career she loved and the personal aspirations she felt were still out of reach was something Débora quietly carried throughout her life. She longed for something more than the spotlight, more than the daily grind of journalism. She yearned for freedom, not just in the professional sense, but in a way that would allow her to explore the world on her own terms. Flying, for her, represented that freedom. It was a way to reclaim a part of herself that had been lost in the process of achieving all that she had. And even though her flying lessons were kept largely private, it became clear that this was the dream that would give her the sense of purpose she had always sought. In the end, it was this search for something beyond the ordinary, beyond the familiar, that defined Debora's legacy. She was not content to simply follow the path laid out for her. She constantly sought out new challenges, new experiences, and new ways to grow. Even after she had reached the pinnacle of success, she refused to stop pursuing what she wanted most in life. Her dedication to personal growth, to finding joy in the things that made her feel truly alive, is perhaps her greatest gift to those who loved her. Yet, Debora's death also serves as a reminder of the fleeting nature of life. Despite all her accomplishments, she was still taken from the world far too soon. Her tragic end, her death in the crash of the small training aircraft, was a cruel twist of fate, a reminder that life is unpredictable and often merciless. But even in her final moments, there was something deeply poetic about Debora's journey. She had lived her life on her own terms, had chased her dreams, and had found a kind of fulfillment that many never experience. In reflecting on her life, it becomes clear that the tragedy of her death is not the end of her story. Rather, it is part of a larger narrative that will continue to inspire those who were touched by her. The lessons she imparted, both through her public persona and the private moments shared with those who knew her best, are timeless. She taught us that it's not enough to simply achieve. We must also pursue what sets our hearts on fire, what makes us feel free, and what gives our lives meaning. Her story also challenges us to rethink our understanding of success. In a world that often measures achievement by external markers, titles, wealth, fame, Debora's life shows that true success is found in living authentically, in chasing the things that bring us joy, and in staying true to who we are, even when the world pressures us to conform. She was not defined by her job or by the expectations placed upon her. She was defined by her courage to follow her heart, to seek out new horizons, and to never stop dreaming, even when the path ahead seemed uncertain. In the years to come, Débora Estrella will be remembered not just for the contribution she made to journalism or for the way she captivated audiences with her voice. She will be remembered for the strength of her spirit, for her relentless drive to reach new heights, and for the legacy she left behind as a woman who, even in the face of unimaginable grief, continued to live her life with purpose and passion. As we reflect on her life and the lessons it offers, we are reminded that no matter how brief our time on this earth may be, the impact we have on others can endure long after we are gone. Débora's story is a testament to the power of living fully, of following our dreams with unwavering commitment, and of finding meaning in every moment, no matter how fleeting. As we close the chapter on Débora Estrella's life, it becomes clear that her legacy is not something that can be easily encapsulated in a few words or a brief tribute. She was not just a name in the media, nor was she simply a woman who captivated the public with her talent and professionalism. Débora Estrella was a force of nature, a woman who lived with passion, with drive, and with an unwavering commitment to personal growth and discovery. Her story, while tragic in its conclusion, continues to resonate with those who were lucky enough to witness her journey. In the wake of her death, there's an undeniable sense of loss that lingers in the hearts of her loved ones, her colleagues, and her audience. But this loss is not just about her untimely passing. It's about the life that was lived, the dreams that were pursued, the boundaries that were pushed, and the way she inspired those around her to be better, to chase their own dreams, and to never settle for anything less than what they truly wanted out of life. For those closest to Débora, the memories they carry are not just of the woman on television, but of the woman behind the camera, the woman who shared laughter over coffee, who spent quiet moments with family, and who dreamed of the sky long before it became her final frontier. Her friends and family remember her as someone who was always present, always there to lend a hand or share a kind word. She was a woman who cared deeply about the people in her life and who, despite the demanding nature of her career, always made time for the one she loved. Her ex-husband, Jose Luis Garcia, often speaks of their shared years with great affection, even as he grapples with the pain of losing someone so dear. They had shared not only a marriage but a career, and they had seen each other at their best and their worst. Their relationship was one of mutual respect and understanding, and even after their divorce, they maintained a bond that was rooted in the love they had once shared. Jose Luis often recalls the quiet moments they spent together, when the pressures of the world seemed distant, and all that mattered was the connection between them. In the days following her death, he found solace in the memories of those times, knowing that, despite everything, they had stayed true to their promise to always support each other. For Débora's colleagues, the pain of her loss is compounded by the fact that her presence in the newsroom, her energy, and her passion were irreplaceable. They speak of her not just as a colleague, but as a leader, a mentor, and a friend. She was the kind of person who inspired others to push themselves, to be better, and to never stop learning. Her commitment to her craft was evident in every broadcast, every story she told, and every interview she conducted. She had a rare ability to make even the most complex stories feel accessible and human. And in doing so, she earned the respect and admiration of everyone who worked alongside her. But beyond her professional achievements, it is Débora's personal story that continues to resonate. Her pursuit of flight, her dream of soaring through the skies, became a symbol of her refusal to be confined by the expectations of others. It was a dream that she had kept to herself for years, something she longed for but never fully believed she could achieve. But when she finally made the decision to take flying lessons, it was as if she had unlocked a new part of herself. She was no longer just a woman behind the camera. She was a woman who was finally chasing the freedom she had always desired. That freedom, however, would ultimately come at a price. The tragic accident that claimed her life was not just the loss of a woman who had so much more to give the world. It was the loss of someone who had dared to dream, who had dared to live fully, and who had never settled for less than what she believed she deserved. Her final moments, spent in the sky she had always longed to explore, were a poignant reminder of the courage it takes to follow one's dreams, even when the path ahead is uncertain and fraught with risk. But Deborah's legacy is not defined by the circumstances of her death. It is defined by the way she lived. She lived with purpose, with passion, and with an unrelenting drive to be the best version of herself. She inspired others to do the same, to chase their own dreams, to live authentically, and to never let fear or doubt hold them back. In her pursuit of freedom, she taught us all that the greatest risks often yield the greatest rewards. She showed us that the journey is just as important as the destination, and that even in the face of tragedy, we can find meaning and purpose in the choices we make. As we reflect on Débora Estrella's life, we are reminded that no one is truly gone as long as their story is still being told. Her legacy lives on in the memories of those who loved her, in the lessons she imparted, and in the lives she touched. The world may have lost a brilliant journalist, but what we gained in return is something far more enduring. A reminder that the pursuit of one's dreams, no matter how difficult or impossible they may seem, is a life worth living. As the final tribute to Débora, let us remember her not just for her accomplishments or her tragic end, but for the way she lived, with grace, with courage, and with a heart full of dreams that reached as high as the sky. Her journey may have ended too soon, but her spirit will forever soar, leaving an indelible mark on the world and on the hearts of those who knew her.